Hello, this is Tim Congdon. I'm again as chairman of the Institute of International Monetary Research. I'm again this month giving a presentation about global monetary trends, but this is very much in the context of an article that I had with Professor Steve Henke of Johns Hopkins University in the Wall Street Journal on the 13th of March. And really that will be the focus of today's presentation. I don't think I'm going to be saying will come as a great surprise to people who have been following my work in the last 7 or 8 years, but one still has to repeat this message, and I think bit by bit it's having its impact. The article in the Wall Street Journal by Steve and myself was in response to a proposal from a chap called Neil Kashkari, who's president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, that American banks should operate with double their current levels of capital relative to their assets. Kashkari believes that this will make the banks safer and therefore mean that a future recession less likely. Now, there's an awful lot wrong with that, in our view. But the key point, and indeed the title of our article was that a doubling of banks' cash ratios would kill the economy. The key point here is that a sudden, mandatory, compulsory, large change in banks' capital asset ratios, big increase in capital asset ratios, is very deflationary. Instead of helping the economy, it causes a big drop in economic activity, and indeed was one of the key reasons why the US economy and other economies went into a much worse recession from late 2008. I should say here that the thinking behind Kashkari's proposal is in no way maverick. On the contrary, he's much closer to the conventional wisdom than we are. And he's very influential, as are such people as John Vickers, who wrote the Vickers Report in Britain, and also Martin Helbig, who's written this book advocating much the same kind of thing. Why are we so agitated about this subject? Well, the key thing is that the effect of a sudden change of this sort in banks' capital ratios is to reduce the quantity of money. So the analysis I'm about to give is very much part of a larger story in which the quantity of money is very important to economic activity. The debates about this subject have been going on for decades, but let's just remember that Milton Friedman said many years ago that it may be the case that if the quantity of money changes by, say, 10% or 50%, the national income doesn't change exactly by 10% or 50%, but it changes by a number similar to that. And changes in the ratio of money to national income are much smaller than changes in the quantity of money and changes in national income. Okay? The velocity of circulation changes a bit, but not very much, relative to movements in money and national income. Let me just show you some of the numbers from America on this subject. They go back to 1959, and you can see, there's a difference between the change in money, on average a bit under 8% a year, and the change in GDP, on average a bit under 7% a year. But over that period under consideration here, a 43-year period, nominal GDP rose by almost 17 times, the money stock by 24 times, and the ratio of money to GDP about half, or less than 1% a year. What this means is that if you have a big increase in the quantity of money, or in the rate of growth, you'll have a boost to economic activity, and then inflation, at its simplest. As saying it. Conversely, if you get a big drop in the quantity of money or in the rate of growth, you will get deflationary pressures, and eventually you might get a falling price level. So the best thing is to have fairly steady growth of the quantity of money year by year. And can I just get it clear that there are many things in economics that are controversial and difficult. But let's just remember what the doctors said, with Hippocratic oath. The first thing is, don't do harm. Okay? Don't carry out a policy action which is likely to cause a dramatic fluctuation, a huge drop in the rate of growth of the quantity of money. Okay. Now, what was ordained by top officialdom from October 2008 for the G20 countries was a big rise in the ratio of banks' capital to their assets. Okay, so clearly that can be carried out, can be achieved, that's the right word, by a big rise in capital or fall in assets. You have a rise in capital asset ratio. If the capital goes up, the assets fall. Let's then think about each of these steps. When a bank raises more capital, it issues some new equity, possibly some new bonds, and investors make payments from their bank deposits to the banks to acquire the new equity claim, perhaps the new bond claim on the banks. That means that the investors' bank deposits fall. Okay? So the effect of banks' capital raising is to destroy money. Okay? The banks can also move towards high capital asset ratios by selling assets. They might sell assets to non-banks, financial institutions, private individuals. And how do these non-banks pay for the assets they purchase from the banks? They pay for them by writing an instruction to reduce their bank deposits to pay for the assets they're purchasing. So again, their bank deposits go down. Okay? So bank deposits being the main form of money in a modern economy, the money balances are destroyed by this process. And then finally, the bank's assets are mostly loans to the private sector. So the banks can go to their borrowing customers and say, look, we know you wanted to repay this loan 18 months from now. We want you to repay it 3 months from now or 6 months from now. And by the way, we won't renew your loan after that. So the result of that withdrawal of loan facilities, again, is to reduce. Let's just get clear what goes on. The way I repay a bank loan is to have some money in a bank deposit, and then I tell my bank to use that money in my bank deposit to repay the loan. So the deposit disappears and the loan disappears. All right, the loan is repaid. But again, the bank deposit disappears from the economy, money is destroyed. So in all these three ways, the effect of a raising of banks' capital asset ratios is to reduce the quantity of money, to destroy money balances, and then this makes, if there is an economic crisis, if there is a problem about falling demand, output, rising unemployment, it makes the problem worse. Now, you might say this is all relatively straightforward. Why didn't these people understand this in late 2008? Why is this chap Kashgari suggesting the same thing even today? I think there are two reasons, looking back to late 2008. The first one is that nowadays most economists, most of the top officials in central banks don't look at the quantity of money at all. They don't pay any attention to the influence of the quantity of money on macroeconomic activity. And of course, the purpose of the institute I've set up to renew the message about this, to make people again aware of the quantity theory of money. But the second aspect of it is that many of the people involved in these decisions sincerely believed in late 2008 and late 2009 that banking systems of entire countries were bust. Now, this is a difficult topic because it involves accounts, accounting standards. Having said that, the American banking system wasn't remotely bust. It continues today, it pays dividends, it pays taxes, etc., etc. And what I want to do just the next few minutes is to look at some numbers produced by the International Monetary Fund in early 2009. The decision to raise club asset ratios was really taken, the beginning of the process was in October 2008. And this then became a big part of the work of various international bureaucracies to implement these decisions taken ultimately under the auspices of the G20 group of major nations. And the International Monetary Fund was roped into this process, which in the end was largely implemented by the Bank for International Settlements in Basel. The IMF, in its April 2009 World Economic Outlook, one of its regular publications, produced an estimate that the losses to be suffered by the American banking system from bad assets would total $1,600 billion. So allegedly, the figure for the tough loans, the inadequate securities they had, the toxic securities and so on, allegedly. At the same time, the capital of the American banking system, as prepared by the Federal Reserve and other federal agencies, was $1,150 billion, on which basis the American banking system was indeed bust, and it needed more capital, etc. Now, many bankers were astonished by this assessment, and frankly couldn't make head or tail of where official was coming from. And looking back with the benefit of hindsight and more definite numbers, the bankers were right, and I'm afraid regulatory officialdom, the IMF, the BS, and so on is completely wrong. The point is that even if a customer has difficulty repaying a loan at one point in time, for a few years they can do things to make it possible to repay a loan, asset prices recover, and things look difficult in November 2008, easy to deal with 3 years later. And don't forget, banks may have losses on their loan books, part of their loan portfolio, and then 90% of the loan portfolio is profitable, producing profits which match or exceed the loan losses. Okay? So we need to do a calculation, looking over a period of years. As you get, there are provisions for loan losses and there are recoveries of loan losses. And we need to bear in mind that banks make operating profits too. So let's just have a look at what actually happened in this period. These numbers are now fairly definite. I don't think, it's now not quite a decade later, but not far off. And what we see is that actually, what bankers call charge-offs, they really can't get anything back. The loan really is bad. And the tax authorities accept it's bad, because tax authorities can be misled by banks exaggerating their losses and they're not paying any tax. There's lots of provisions and precedent and understandings about these matters that go back decades. Anyway, you'll see there that in fact the charge-offs of the American banking system, $175 billion, 2009, $176 billion, 2010, $105 billion, 2011, now $30 billion a year. Relative to capital, which is written since then, capital of over $1,150 billion. The banks weren't bust at all. And then, just as I said, the banks also have profits to make against their loan losses. So there was one year, 2009, the worst year of the US economy since the 1930s, when the banks had losses of, overall, $12 billion, not $1,600 billion. US banks weren't bust at all. Some banks were indeed in difficulties. And the normal thing in these circumstances is for the Federal Reserve, other federal agencies, talk to people behind closed doors. Look, guys, take these idiots out, buy them out. There may be some losses for you. Try and sort it out if you have real trouble in the future, but sort it out, system. And all done behind closed doors. Nobody knows any trouble. There is not a great recession, thank you very much. There are no demands for extra banking system capital imposed on the banks by the regulators. The regulators are pragmatic and sensible. So, anyway, so what happened in practice was that instead of being pragmatic and sensible in this crisis, the top policymakers went ahead with the decision to raise capital asset ratios at the worst point in the cycle, and this was one of the key reasons why the Great Recession took place. Sure enough, they could offset the impact, the deflationary impact of what they'd done by slashing interest rates, by QE, and of course what they've done. But if they hadn't gone for this big increase in capital ratios, the slashing of interest rates and QE wouldn't have been necessary. Now look, I don't think, frankly, under President Trump, that Kashkari's got hope in hell of pushing through his agenda. But it's something that the banking industry must be aware of. To some extent, banks will try and anticipate the process by holding back on their loan growth, being very cautious and keeping up their capital levels. And those actions will themselves be somewhat deflationary. I wouldn't exaggerate it too much, but not to be overlooked. So it would be a very dangerous, a very bad idea for the USA to accept and adopt Kashkari's proposal. On the contrary, in my view, there should be a reassessment of this whole period, and critically, we need to look again at how far banks need to hold these immense levels of capital, far ahead of what they've had on average in the last 20, 30 years, and perhaps need to be a little more sensible and understand that banks need to make a profit. Okay, that was really the point of the article in the Wall Street Journal on the 13th of March. I've only got a few minutes just to sum up on actual money developments, and I think just I would point out that there's quite a lot of talk about fairly buoyant 2017. In fact, money trends in the United States are not indicating that. Money trends in the United States have slowed down since last August. Money growth has slowed down a bit. And we've got this rise in prices because of the oil price and so on. So the growth of real money balances in the USA in recent months has been quite slow. And I'm not expecting a big Trump boom in 2017. In India, there's been these measures to take the 500 and 1,000 rupee notes out of circulation just to reduce the level of tax evasion that was taking place in the black economy with notes. A good cause in many ways. However, it will have in the short run a damping effect on economic activity. Elsewhere, things are fine. There is steady growth of money at moderate rates, and I think it's reasonable indeed to envisage 2017 being a year of steady, slow growth, despite the impact of high oil prices on inflation numbers at the moment, also quite moderate inflation pressures. Thank you.